Hey everybody, I'm Climbing Coach Liam Briddon, and today I'd like to talk to you about board training. Now we've seen a jump in a number of people building boards and training at home, and I'd just like to take this opportunity to give you my top tips for training effectively at home and training safely. Now, as with all forms of climbing, it is important that we warm up effectively. Especially if we've had some time away, we might have lost some of that connective tissue stiffness that we have when we climb regularly. Now, with board climbing, we follow the same principles as with all climbing. We use that ramp warm-up, but we pay a particular emphasis to the shoulders and fingers as we want to be fully recruited to face the demanding task at hand. Now, it's worth noting that the angle of our training board will significantly impact the intensity of our training sessions. In an ideal world, the angle of the board wants to replicate the climbing style that we are training for. Now, for sport climbers, an angle of 30 degrees or less is going to be more useful for training those endurance style protocols, whereas if you're looking to train max power, 40 degrees or more is going to be more useful because it's going to be more intense. Whereas if we're a competition climber, perhaps a gentler angle, splatterboard style climber is going to be more useful because we can closely replicate the unique nature of competition climbing, where we run into various different holds and for more complex movements. I am aware, however, that the board we build is going to be impacted by 1, budget, and 2, space. So you might be limited and not able to build a splatter style board, and you want to build a steeper board and still train that style of climbing. I'd just like to mention a couple of training principles that are worth noting. The first being the SAID principle. Now, the SAID principle stands for specific adaptations to imposed demands. Essentially what that means is if you train a particular area, you will improve at it. And this is worth bearing in mind when beginning board training, as initially it can be quite challenging. But if we do stick at it, we will see improvements and you will adapt to that style of climbing in that terrain. The second principle is the law of diminishing returns. Now, this is the flip side to the SAID principle. If you only train in one style without ever varying the training input, so you don't change the intensity or the movements, you'll basically receive a slower return on the training you're putting in. You'll improve at a slower rate. So maybe that's more prevalent in people who have been board training for a long time and stick to the same problems and same angle. Maybe they need to mix it up, they need to change the style at which they're climbing, they want to climb on more pinches, but maybe a little bit less front on, and just have a greater varied training input. Now, before we get on to actual training protocols, I'd just like to briefly touch on last points. The first one being training frequency. Now, if you are new to this style of climbing, steep board climbing, then you need to make sure you optimize the rest periods by limiting the frequency in which you climb. This is because the demands are quite high when board climbing. It's harsh on the fingers and shoulders, and you need to make sure that you are fresh for each of those sessions. The next one the next aspect I'd like to touch on is system board training. Now, the beauty of a system board is it is symmetrical, and that symmetrical nature allows you to train each side of your body equally, and it should highlight whether or not you have any imbalances or weaknesses on either side, and you can aim to train those aspects. And one other point, I find it very beneficial to make sure I track my climbing, and this can be done with apps such as the Moonboard app or the Stoked app, and basically you can track your progression. You can set yourself some benchmark problems, and when you complete them, you will be able to gauge whether or not you're improving in this style of climbing. And that's great for motivation, and it just keeps the sessions fun and fresh and makes you want to actually climb on board. I would just like to quickly touch on a couple of key benefits of board style training. Now, firstly, it is great for that contact strength. It's great for your fingers being able to apply force on contact with a hole. Secondly, one of the most underrated aspects of climbing is that body tension. It's going to work the kinetic chain, your ability to apply force down through that foot, with the core, through the shoulder to the hand, and maintain that tension when climbing. And that is one of the key aspects that you can really work when board climbing. They can also be great for training lock. You can try and make sure you focus on doing movements as statically as possible. You can also focus on dynamic movements. You can do it's a movement, cut, pull it back in, and continue climbing. I'd just like to quickly talk about a few training protocols you can actually use whilst board training. The first one I like to use is to do consecutive boulders. Essentially, I like to set myself a circuit of say 6 to 10 boulders of progressive difficulty. Now the first one wants to be, challenging but not too difficult, whereas the last one wants to be at the top end of your grade and you should maybe only just be completing it. Now it's worth noting that for all of these training protocols you already want to be warmed up, so these are easier boulders at the start, don't want to be a warm-up block, you should be ready to go. The next training protocol I would like to mention is 4x4s. Now 4x4s are great, they're a staple of a lot of people's training. Essentially it's completing 4 boulders consecutively 4 times a round. Now you don't want to be resting between each of these boulders, you want to climb up, finish a boulder, drop down, maybe quickly chalk up and repeat 4 times. Now between each set you want maybe 2 to 3 minutes rest, keep it relatively short and then repeat. And if you want to vary the intensity of that, maybe make it a little bit more power endurance based, you could do 6x3, so that's 6 boulders in a row, but 3 sets of that. Now, the last one I'd like to talk about is linked boulders. Now, linked boulders are great for working, top end power endurance. So you do a really difficult, challenging boulder, drop off and repeat it. Now maybe you don't get it twice in a row, but as long as you get a couple of movements in there, it's going to be great for working that power endurance. Now, for all of these training boulders, you want to focus on intensity and don't make them overly complex. You don't want to be falling off because they're weird and crooksy, you want to be falling off because you're powering out or you're pumping out. Just like to say thank you for watching, guys, and if you do have any questions, head over to the Team BMC YouTube page or feel free to leave a comment on this video and I'll try and get back to you. Have a good one, stay safe, keep training.